So welcome, Ian, to our podcast. It's so good to have you here. How are you doing? How is this coronavirus time affecting on you? And how are you dealing with it? How are you doing?
Yeah, I mean, I'm used to working from home anyway, because as a professional CV writer, I spend a lot of my time at home in front of my computer, in front of LinkedIn, targeting clients. However, I would normally go out and meet those clients in person at various hotels in and around London. So at the moment, all of those meetings are taking place on Skype.
Very nice. Very nice. Before we get into your profession, I would like to ask for the audience, how where do you come from? Where did you grow up? How did you come to Northwood United Synagogue?
Well, it's a bit of a long journey and a long story, but the short version is that I was actually born in Westcliff in Essex, 62 and a bit years ago. My birth mother had to give me up for initially fostering and then adoption. Again, a bit of a long story, but she was a Jewish lady, and for some reason was going out with a non-Jewish chap called John, and unfortunately she had a bit of an affair and got pregnant.
Excuse me, you're talking about your mother, or you're talking about the person that you went to? Sorry.
So this is my birth mother in Westcliff. A Jewish lady who was going out with a non-Jewish gentleman, and they planned to marry, and she had an affair with another non-Jewish gentleman, and obviously the boyfriend found out and said, "Hello, what's been going on here?" And she was very remorseful and very sorry. So the future husband said, "Well, you know, if we're going to get married and live happily ever after, unfortunately, the baby's not coming with us." And that baby was me. So off I went into a foster home, but I subsequently got adopted. And the rabbi at the time in Westcliff and Southend was very instrumental in my adoption. Because he was the local rabbi, but also he just happened to be my uncle. He was doing he was brilliant at the pastoral care. And he was going around the hospitals one day visiting all of the Jewish patients. And he walked into the ward and said, "Good afternoon, madam." I won't give you the names. And he says, "Mazel tov on your baby." She says, "Oh, very Rabbi." She says, "I have a wonderful baby, but unfortunately I have to give him up." So he thinks, aha, I have a brother-in-law and sister-in-law in Liverpool who've been trying for a baby for 10 years. This baby would be ideal for them. So my adopted parents and the rabbi, my uncle, went through the correct channels. They went through social services and everything. And it was agreed that at a few weeks old, off I would go to Liverpool.
Wow.
So
you're talking about very early stages in life, like less than 1 year old, like when you're a real baby.
Oh gosh, I'm guessing that this was a matter of a few weeks old. I mean, I obviously do have the adoption file, which gives the exact dates, but I can't remember exactly. So I go off to Liverpool, and I was an only child. I get brought up in a loving, caring home. I'm told that I was a little bit spoiled, but then, who isn't when you're an only child? Yeah. And I went to a Jewish school. I went to the King David until I was 16. Even though they had Jewish lessons there, I also went to Cheder every Sunday morning.
When did you know your true identity of your mother? Did from the beginning, or from a very early stage, or how did it?
Yeah, I was told when I was very young. I couldn't put an age on it, but my mother always used to say to me, you know, you're special. You were chosen.
Uh-huh.
So I mean, it didn't really make any difference to me. I just treated them as my parents and got on with my life.
And you
So
met your mother? Did you eventually meet your biological mother?
no, no, I've never done that to this day. A few years ago, I went to Uxbridge Social Services, and I said I'd like to find out who it was. And after about 3 or 4 sessions, she brought in the file that she'd obtained from Liverpool Social Services or wherever it was. And I was able to see in the file the original birth certificate with my original birth name,
Wow.
which, you know, very, very few people know, as you would imagine. And you know, there were letters going backwards and forwards between my parents and Southend, Westcliff Social Services. You know, letters that my adopted mother had written in her own handwriting,
Wow.
and I mean, all sorts of very emotional stuff, which obviously I'd never seen before. So that's somewhere in this flat, tucked
Wow.
away
Wow.
safely.
Wow. What a story. Wow.
So, but I've never, you know, everybody has a choice, don't they? And everybody has their own personal decision as to whether they would take it that stage further, and find your birth mother and birth father.
Uh-huh.
And I wouldn't criticize anybody for wishing to do so or not.
Yeah.
I know people who have, and it's all turned out very nice, and they've, you know, in fact, first cousin of mine did exactly that. Found out he had 3 or 4 brothers and sisters, so he developed a new family.
Wow.
Um,
So,
another
yes.
friend. Sorry, yeah, Rabbi.
No. I'm listening. Sorry.
Yes, and then another friend in Liverpool. He was adopted as well, and he found his mother in Rochdale or somewhere, and his father was a member of the Kuwaiti government,
Wow.
who really didn't want to be found at all. So that had disastrous consequences.
Very
But
interesting. So if going up forward in your life, you continued to live in Liverpool until a stage that you got married, and then you stayed in Liverpool, or
no,
how did it go?
no. As I say, I went to a Jewish school, went to Cheder. I also sang in a shul choir for 10 years in the infamous Greenbank Drive synagogue, which was a wonderful old shul, you know, which had its own proper seats, you know, and you had a key to the box in your seat to
Yeah.
put your tallis and your siddur, you know, your own name across the top of the you know, the shelf for your siddur.
Yeah.
You know, 2
Done that.
stories with a proper ladies' gallery and a proper choir loft for us all to go upstairs and make lots of noise.
And you were that quiet. So you were part of that choir.
I was part of the choir for 10 years, and then it got to the stage where, well, in fact, before all that, so I had my bar mitzvah in March of 1971. Unfortunately, after that, my mother took ill. She had stomach cancer, and she passed away in December of 71 when I was only 13. By this stage, my father had had 1 or 2 heart attacks, and in April 74, he passed away as well. So it was almost like, you know, by the time I was 16, not only had I lost, in effect, my birth parents, but I'd also lost my adopted parents as well. So, so at 16, you know, there was a big,
Where did you go? Exactly. Where
right.
did
Well, so there was a big decision to be made. I had all over the country 18 aunts and uncles, 1 or 2 in Liverpool, a few in Hull, where my mother came from originally. Obviously, my aunt and uncle in Westcliff, and it was actually decided that I would stay in Liverpool to finish my schooling and to be amongst my friends. So I went to live with some very, very good friends of my parents, who had a son of their own, who's 8 months older than me, and we'd sort of grown up like brothers.
Are you
So
still in contact with this person?
I'm still in contact with Mark. Yes, absolutely. But obviously, his parents over the years have passed away as well. But I remain very close to them until their passing. But you know, what they did was amazing. They took me in. I was there for about 5 years, during which time I'd managed to scrape together a couple of A-levels and go to college in Hull, where I studied business studies. And I'd already met, I'd already met Martin Schulz by this stage, because half of my family come from Hull, and I'd met Martin about 10 years before that on one of my family visits. Probably what you don't know is that during my time at college, in fact, probably within the last few months, it was me who introduced Marcia and Martin, and the rest is history, as they say.
The rest is history. Wow, that's a big zechus. Fantastic. So you got married in Hull, or where did you?
No, so I finished Hull. I didn't even go back to Liverpool at that point. I just stayed in Hull until I knew what I was doing. I didn't really know what I was going to do next. So some family of mine in London said, "Oh, well, come down to London for a weekend. Let's have a chat and let's see if we can help you out." And one of my cousins in particular put me in touch. He was very well connected, and he put me in touch with one or two people. And lo and behold, I got my first job in London starting in the September of 1980. So I literally had to pack all of my stuff up in Hull, drive down to London and start my new life in London. And I've kind of been here ever since.
Wow, what a story. Fantastic. And so when was the first time when you came down there? You came straight to Northwood, or what year was it that you came in Northwood?
Yeah, so the first period in London, I lived in Finchley, and I rented with a chap from Hampstead Garden suburb for about 18 months. And then in 1982, I bought my first flat in Kingsbury. Eventually met my ex-wife in 86. We got married in 87. And then we moved to Pinner initially in 89. Hatch End 96, and I moved to Northwood in 2002.
Wow.
So until I moved to Watford recently in December, I'd been in Northwood for 17 years.
Wow, that's amazing. Wow, what a story. Yeah, that's an amazing, and I believe this is just the tip of the iceberg. So tell me something. Yeah. You are a professional CV writer, and that's what you do. How did the COVID-19 affect your business? Was it maybe fascinating? A lot of people are looking for jobs now, or how does it work? Is it better now? Is it worse? Maybe the same?
I would say for me personally, things have gone a little bit quiet, simply because nobody has got any money to spend on having their CV rewritten. I think generally speaking, most people who were either out of work before the virus or who have been made redundant as a result of the virus, most of them are just hanging on to see what happens, how things transpire, watching their pennies very carefully. And I think that when we do eventually come out the other side, then that may be the time when people will look to have the CV initially reviewed, which is a free service, and then potentially have it rewritten. But right now, people are generally doing absolutely nothing.
Wow, wow. It must be a little bit difficult. Wow.
Yeah, it's tough, but you know, I mean, I'm still getting CVs in the whole time um, for the free review, so that is very much keeping me busy and at
Very
least
good.
giving me something to do.
Uh-huh.
Obviously, we'd like some paying clients, but
Of course.
we just have to be patient at the moment, and all of us just have to get through these next few weeks or months and see what
Sure,
happens.
sure. A different type of question now is it what if I ask you, what do you miss most about not being in shul, and what is the first thing that you want to do when you have the opportunity to come back to shul? What do you what on a positive note?
I think, as you know from recent weeks and months, I do like to come, particularly on a Friday night.
Kabbalat
Uh,
Shabbat, yes.
you know, the unfortunate thing is that we often struggle to get a minyan, but I feel proud and privileged that when we do get a minyan, that I'm able to make a
Part of it.
contribution and come along,
Yeah,
especially for those people who are saying Kaddish.
sure.
Um, so I enjoy the Friday night service. You know, we have a good sing song, and you know the Gemara Shir at the end, which I think was about walled cities and what day we could say the Megillah.
Very good. You
That,
remember.
that got quite interesting after a while. So
Very good.
I don't know if that's got any further to go, or whether we've
No,
exhausted
no.
that. But
After the Haftarah every on 6 o'clock we have a Haftarah, and after Haftarah we're gonna have a Gemara Shir before
uh,
7. But very good. Very good.
yeah, so that's
Happy
really
to
the
be here.
thing. And you know, there were times last year, or many times in the past, where I used to come every week, and I've just got out of the habit of doing that. But you know, please God, when we're able to, then I can come back and come on Shabbos as well.
Beautiful, beautiful. Excellent. Thank you so much for coming on this show.
Okay.
Um, I really enjoyed the story. It's a fascinating story about your life and
Yeah.
about about the adoption, which I think it's a huge dilemma as you brought it, to search for your mother, not to search. It's a big question, and everyone has a different approach. But I would like to end just to say, hopefully, Bezat Hashem will get out of this situation fast, and
Yeah.
we'll see us rejoicing in the synagogue. So thank you again, and have a good day.
Okay. Thank you, Rabbi. Bye bye.
Thank you. Bye bye.